Well, hello, I'm Darrell Bakeman, and I am coming to you from Southern Arizona in the great city of Tucson. We happen to be where the action is in this campaign election year. And today we're going to be talking about a very important topic, and that's education.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning?
I'm fine, and we're just happy that you're on our LD17 YouTube channel today. We always bring important topics to the community so that they can see what we're doing here in Arizona and get a sense of how important the issues that we bring forth are, and also this particular legislative district and our efforts to inform, educate, and engage the electorate so that they can be actively involved in this 2024 election season. So, Nikki, thank you for taking time. Would you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Nicky Indicavitch. I'm the outreach director at Save Our Schools Arizona. Essentially, what that means is I work all of our field programming. So you will see me across the state talking to voters and volunteers about public education here in Arizona and how they can get involved in our fight to make sure that we have public schools for decades to come.
Thank you very much. That's short and simple. Nicky Indicavitch, we're so happy to have you here to talk about public education in the state of Arizona. It's a terribly important issue, and I say terribly because we are functioning terribly in the state of Arizona. But you made a presentation, Nikki, to the LD17 general meeting, and it was received so well that we wanted to have you to present that presentation on our YouTube channel. So we're so happy you're here with us today.
Thank you so much. Let's get into it. So this is our Save Our Schools Arizona Network 2024 Education Roadshow. This is all you need to know about the fight to save public schools in the state of Arizona. So here's us. We are Save Our Schools Arizona Network. We're a nonpartisan, community-based organization, and we firmly believe that public schools make strong states. And so we support the model of public education, a great public school in every neighborhood for every kid, no matter where they may be. Here in the state of Arizona, we've had school choice for many decades. Back into the early 90s, you could find school choice options here in the state of Arizona. Despite all of that, we have found that Arizona families continue to choose public schools as their option for educating their students. Here in the state, you can see our students are 72% in our local district schools, 20% are in our public charter schools, and just a small fraction are in private and homeschool options. So despite what you may have heard, despite what may be being said by politicians, Arizona families choose public education. They believe that that local public option is the best choice for them and their kids for an education program. What we've seen in Arizona is just a really lack of care for public schools in our state. We have been in the bottom in per pupil funding for many, many years. Our state legislature has not prioritized increasing this per pupil number. And so what we really see from Arizona is a race to the bottom. We are currently in 49th in per pupil funding. We have battled for the bottom. Sometimes we'll go up one, sometimes we'll go down one. But the reality is that we have found ourselves in the bottom on these metrics for many, many years. What that has done is put us about $5.5 billion behind the average. And that's not the top, that's just the middle. So just to get Arizona kiddos to that middle point investment, you're talking about billions of dollars that need to be invested in public schools. That adds up to about $5,400 per kid. $5,400 invested into Arizona kids could do a lot of great things in terms of our public education offerings. We could increase teacher salaries with those dollars. We could lower class sizes. We could bring back robust art and music programming. We could address the skills that kiddos need for the global economy that they are going to be going into as adults. And so you see that investment is having impact. Some of the biggest impact we see is on our teaching staff and our class sizes. Arizona has the second most crowded class sizes in the United States. If you have kiddos in public schools in Arizona, you know that these class sizes have gotten bigger and bigger as the state has pulled more and more resources from our public schools. Our teacher salaries rank in the bottom, and they have for many years. This has led to a retention crisis. Educators are valuable members of our community. When you don't treat them as such, of course, they can't stay in the classroom. They need that increased salary, and they need to be treated fairly and respected for the value that they bring to our communities. And so we see that low teacher salary really causes Arizona educators to find other options outside of our classrooms. The student to counselor ratio is the second worst. It's been at the bottom for many years. When Superintendent Hoffman was in office, she did make it a point to try to lower this number a little bit and really give our counselors the opportunity to get involved with our kids the way that we know that they need to be. Since she has left that office, this number has again ticked back up, making us second worst in the United States. This is a metric that daily causes concern for students in Arizona's public schools. They need that support if something's going on at home, or if they need academic supports to get them through. This student to counselor ratio makes it very difficult for adults to interject and get involved when kids need it most. School facilities are in arrears here in Arizona. They have been for many years. This is essentially our lawmakers not paying their bills. They owe about $3 billion to school facilities at this point, and that's just going to continue to get worse as they do not invest in public schools. All of this and much more here, all of this decision making has led Arizona to a situation where we're looking at a budget deficit. We're about 1.8 billion short. This is in part due to the flat tax that was implemented by the previous governor. Governor Ducey rolled out a flat tax that was very aggressive and cost a lot of revenue across the board. That flat tax really did benefit high income earners in Arizona, not necessarily your middle and low income families. And so you see here that that cost is coming out in this budget deficit. That coupled with a universal voucher expansion that's costing us hundreds of millions of dollars every year has really led to our state budget being put under a lot of stress, and lawmakers kind of scrambling to figure out how they pay their bills now that these two policies have been rolled out in the state of Arizona. One of the biggest issues, of course, is that universal voucher program. So what is a voucher? Here in Arizona, they call them empowerment scholarship accounts. They can call them whatever they want. These are vouchers, and nothing has changed. This is public tax dollars issued by the Department of Education to parents through debit cards or private accounts, PayPal sort of situation with a class wallet account. This can be used for a number of things: private school, micro school, and home schools. And it can be rolled over for university and college and community college tuition. Something that I don't think a lot of Arizona voters realize: your public education tax dollars are being siphoned off for those higher education costs of families in the state of Arizona. As you can see, we've had vouchers in Arizona for a very long time. This is the cost of our voucher program over the years. You really saw Arizona lawmakers dip into reckless spending in 2022. This is when they rolled out their universal voucher program. They made this available to every person in the state of Arizona with no restrictions. And so once you roll out a program like this that has no restrictions and accountability, you can plan for increased costs. And we absolutely saw that very quickly within the universal program. So for 2023 and 2024, you see we are well over $500 million, well on our way to $1 billion annually lost to these universal vouchers. So what is all that money buying us? What are Arizona taxpayers getting for all of this expense? It's hard to say because they're not transparent within this program. They do not release public records on what vouchers are being used for. But what we can glean so far and what we have seen and what has been released tells us there is a lot of misspending inside the voucher program. You see up here on the screen, bounce houses are being purchased through this program. We've got dog dryers, we've got kayaks. We've seen chicken coops being purchased within this program. Family activities like trips to the zoo and gymnasiums, things like that are all being considered educational related expenses. And so they're being approved with taxpayer dollars. You also see private school expenses. Of course, those are being covered across the board. In some of our more affluent communities, you see that private school tuition is really costly for Arizona taxpayers. Private lessons, those are being included. You can see that now. One of the things that I'm monitoring is summer camps here in Arizona. There is a lot of taxpayer dollars being spent within summer camps by families that are within this voucher program. So what happens? What's going on? You've implemented universal vouchers here in Arizona, the first state ever to have a universal program, and we're seeing the impact of that. One of the things that we're seeing is this is not about parent choice. Schools are picking the kiddos that they want. They can deny anyone entry. It doesn't matter why. They are private schools and they do not have to answer to taxpayers. So it really is a scenario where your private for-profit schools get to pick and choose what kids they want to educate. The other thing that we're seeing is really scary discriminatory practices within the voucher program. We have a lot of private schools here that will straight up say LGBTQ students are not welcome here, nor are LGBTQ families or parents. And we've had parents come out and say, I enrolled my kiddo in a private school. They found out that that we were a gay married couple, and they asked our students to leave. And so discriminatory practices are alive and well within the private school market, and kids are paying the price for that. When you enter the voucher program, you do waive your rights to IDEA. And so we're also seeing a lot of families of special education kiddos come forward and say this private school refused to do what was mandated by law within my IEP or my 504. And then we have to tell parents, you waive those rights when you enter the Arizona Universal Voucher Program. For LD17 and the County of Pima, I pulled up just a little bit of information about your local school districts and the impacts that you all are feeling. This runs down Pima County outside of Tucson. So you look at some of your more rural districts, and it's getting expensive for some of these small schools. It's about $13 million a year that you're losing to the Universal Voucher Program. But the real hit comes within your Tucson schools where you have that higher student population. So you've got a lot of kiddos in Tucson Unified School District, and this voucher program is costing them about $33 million a year. Those are expenses that TUSD could not afford. I am sure that their teachers and educators are having to look at how they make their way through budget cuts like this, how they slim down services that were already slim. And remember, we already have a teacher turnover problem. We already have large class sizes. So to look at these districts and say you're going to lose more, that is a dangerous place to be in terms of what students need and what they're able to get from their local public school. Arizona voters do not appear to love the universal voucher program, which is no surprise given the news that has come out of this mess since it was implemented. The majority of Arizona voters oppose the universal voucher program, 60%. In a state like Arizona, you would be hard pressed to find any other issue that many people agree to oppose. And so you continue to see Arizona voters say, absolutely not. This is not where I want my taxpayer dollars going. And just a small margin are in support of this program, as you can see. So what's next? What's going to happen? It's really scary when I talk to community members and interested parties and families. We're going to see some devastating impact from this program. It is expensive. It is unchecked. It will grow and grow and grow. And as we talked about earlier, the budget is already feeling strain from this and those flat tax policies. And so over the next couple of months to years, we are going to see some closures. We've already seen that in a couple of communities across the state. We are seeing teacher layoffs now. It is budget season for our school districts, so they are having these difficult conversations. In our rural communities, we see a lot of districts talking about 4-day weeks. Some districts have already decided to go to 4-day weeks. And we think this is going to get worse. There's no reason to believe that somehow we're going to reverse this trend if we do not rein in this universal voucher program. So what can you do? One of the things we always talk about is how do you address this? The power lies within community here. We have got to band together and have serious conversations about who we allow at our capital and what laws we allow them to create. The great news about Arizona is every 2 years, all of your lawmakers are up for re-election. So it's not as though you've got to wait decades to make these changes. We encourage everyone to get involved. take a look at who's on the ballot, take a look at their position on this universal voucher program and public education in general, and make sure that you know who's going to end up at the Capitol creating law for you. Testimony is always great down at the Capitol. You can see some of these pictures are us hanging out at the Capitol frequently with all of our favorite parents and teachers. Lawmakers need to hear the impact that these policies they're implementing are having on communities. And nobody is better to do that than the parents, teachers, and community members that are faced with the reality that their public school may cut services or may close. And so we encourage everybody to lift their voice and speak up for public schools. They need us and we need them. The reality is that this country needs public education now more than ever. We need kiddos coming out of our public schools that are ready for the world, and that can grow this state economically. You know, we're growing in terms of population. We've got to match that with talent. We need our young people to have the resources they need to be great adults for us. We all want to retire someday. That's not going to happen if we don't invest in our public schools and set our kids up for success. You can join us here. All the links are here. I will share that as well. And I will stop sharing my screen. There
Nikki,
we are.
it's really great. I love that presentation. I think it's really important for people to understand some basic things. And, I love that you said you got to pay attention to who you send to the state. It's not about blue and red and Democratic and Republican and conservative and progressive. Y'all need to stop that. It's about us. It's about us doing what is best for the people in this state, no matter what. And you have just said some things that are really important because we've sent a lot of people to the state who believe in wild schemes like flat tax, like universal vouchers. I won't even keep going. And people hear these words, and because they're aligned with whatever group, they think it's good and they never get in the weeds and figure out what the impact is on their slogans that they then vote on without any research or backing or understanding of the implications. We are worse than Mississippi in the state of Arizona on funding our kids. Why is it our legislators want to keep our kids dumb? What makes them think that's a good idea? Do you have any answers for
I don't. I do think it comes down to one simple point, and this may be ideological or whatever. There is a group of people, the majority of people, who believe that every child should have an opportunity. Every kid, no matter where they come from, should be able to access a great public education system. They shouldn't have to fight for it.
right?
They shouldn't have the right parents to get into it. They shouldn't need anything. They should be able to walk into our communities and get an education. I do think there's a divergence from that. I don't know that we all agree on that anymore. There seems to be a group of people who think it's okay to deny education to some kids. And that is a fundamental flaw in their thinking. This country will never survive if we do not invest in young people. And I mean every young person, not the ones that we deem worthy, right? Not the ones who have parents that are willing to fight for them. No, it shouldn't matter what they have. It shouldn't matter what their parents are capable of doing. Every single young person deserves access to a great education. Once we all agree on that point and we shut down lawmakers who do not agree on that point, we're going to do much better off because we know that every single child is our responsibility. Every single child is our future, and we meet them where they are. And nobody does that better than public schools.
I agree with that. What you've just said is something that one of the first rules I learned in life. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. In other words, think about somebody other than yourself. Care about somebody other than yourself. When you're
Yep.
voting and go into that booth and all you think about is me, I, and then you cloak yourself in other things that we won't mention today, then we end up with all of this selfish behavior, not caring about the other person. And look at what it has done. We have chaos in so many areas of my life. I'm not going to start preaching, but I will say this. You said something really important. Pay attention to who you send to the capitals, both in your state and nationally. You have to get out of your camp and think about somebody other than just yourself. You want people who represent everyone. In fact, I say this whenever I speak. This country was started on E pluribus unum. Together, we are one. And we went away from that. And in 56, they decided to say, in God we trust. And then people went off into this tangent. And instead of thinking about one another and how we work together, we have become very divided. I love the way you approach this because everybody has a child in their life. If it's not one that they bore themselves, it's one that they love through familiar relationships or even just being a neighbor or someone in a school or someone that they coach. Think about our children. This is the most important issue of our time. If we don't invest in our children, we are not investing in our future. So I thank you, Nikki, for coming and sharing this presentation and giving us the facts of why it is so important that we pay attention to education. Is there anything that we left out that you'd like to share before we end?
I think the only thing to keep in mind is that we have a legislature that meets every year, so they're creating laws every year. They come back in the beginning of January. They're still in session right now. It is incumbent on all of us to really apply pressure to lawmakers to respect our choice and take care of our kids. So, if you want to get plugged in, reach out to us on that. We would love to have more voices down at the Capitol, and I know our lawmakers need to hear from the communities that are feeling the impact. So please plug in, find a way to lift your voice for public schools. This is the year to put down a battle for what I believe is a cornerstone of our democracy. I will save public schools, and we need a big team to do it. So please join us.
Thank you very much, Nikki from Save Our Schools. We appreciate you taking time. I know how busy you are, but this is such an important subject matter. And is there a way for you to put up that last slide that had your QR code on it?
Yep, let me grab that.
Okay, I'm going to let you grab that. And while you're grabbing that, I'm going to say we are so appreciative of Nikki from Save Our Schools presenting this presentation. You're going to see how you can follow up with her and get more information about volunteering, about being involved in the things that they're doing in the community. And we hope that you will join Save Our Schools. Even if you're a grandparent, an aunt, a cousin, a friend of a coach, someone who you teach in your classes on Sunday, please reach out to Save Our Schools. Nikki, thank you so much. We so appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be on the LD17 YouTube channel. Thank you and have a wonderful day.